All right, so my question for my multimedia project was, how does growing up in a wealthy, primarily upper class, fortunate area of Houston compare to growing up in a poor, primarily lower class, unfortunate area of Houston? So the way I got my answer was I did an in-depth interview with two people close to me, one being from the Braeswood area of Houston, which is known to be a more wealthy, upper class, kind of stable area of Houston. And then I also interviewed my other close friend who's from the Sunnyside area, which is kind of has a stigma of being a little bit of a less fortunate, less wealthy area of Houston. And so, yeah, I asked him the same questions just to compare, and these are the questions I asked. Number one was briefly describe your experiences growing up in the Braeswood / Sunnyside area of Houston. Number two was, did you ever feel unsafe to walk / ride a bike outside without parental supervision in your neighborhood? Number three was briefly describe your experiences with schools you attended before college. Number four was, were bullying or illegal activities ever a major concern for you or your parents when you were going through school as a child? Number five was, would you say your school has had a decent amount of funding for education, extracurricular activities, and field trips, etc.? Number six, did you ever experience any type of crime in your neighborhood, like, for example, break-ins, robberies, shooting, anything like that? Number seven would be, would you consider your neighborhood to be an unwealthy / less fortunate area, or a wealthy / fortunate area, or even middle class? Just whatever their perspective is on it. Number eight, looking back, do you feel at all privileged to have grown up where you did? If not, did you ever feel less privileged than people growing up in different neighborhoods? Number nine, would you ever consider donating / helping out to the less fortunate areas after you move out? Like in Houston, I mean, after like you move out of the house that you grew up in. And number 10 is, what takeaways do you have from this interview? Did it open your eyes to anything you had not yet considered? So basically, I made it known to them, like, if they didn't feel comfortable answering the questions, like, they didn't have to. But for the most part, they answered all the questions as I wanted them to. And just the whole point of this was just basically to basically get their perspective. I mean, there's not a better source than somebody, like, people who actually grew up in those neighborhoods, and just overall to compare and just see how different life was. So the next segment will be me cutting to their answers to these questions.
Briefly describe your experiences growing up in the Braeswood area of Houston. So I lived in Braeswood during elementary school. Then I moved out of Braeswood, moved back into Braeswood 7th grade. So I've been living here ever since, except when I went, past semester, lived in Lubbock for Texas Tech. It's a very safe neighborhood. I love it. I know all of my neighbors. Yeah. Did you ever feel unsafe to walk or ride a bike without parental supervision in your neighborhood? No, I never felt that. I could always go outside at midnight, go on a jog around the neighborhood. I'd play outside as a kid with my neighbors, play basketball. Briefly describe your experiences with the schools that you attended before college. So for elementary school, I went to Mark Twain. Very safe, they have really good teachers there, good staff. Middle school, I went to Pershing. Honestly, I loved Pershing. At the time, it was the most fun I'd ever had. I loved Pershing. Good school. And then Lamar High School. Not the best in academics, but they did teach you pretty well, I'd say. Were bullying or illegal activities ever a major concern for you or your parents in school? Honestly, you'll find bullying and illegal activities anywhere you go, but they weren't necessarily a concern for me or my parents. Would you say that your schools had enough or a decent amount of funding for education, extracurricular activities, or field trips? Yeah, definitely. After elementary school, we didn't go on field trips. They didn't have them, but there's definitely enough funding for the school. I mean, the lunches, they're school lunches. They're not really supposed to be gourmet. They're just supposed to get you fed. So I'd say the funding was definitely decent. Did you ever experience any type of crime in your neighborhood? Break-ins, robberies, shootings. Um, there was a shooting. Not really a shooting. I think someone had a suicide in our neighborhood. So, and everyone talks in our neighborhood. Everyone, you can find out what's going on. Everyone's super nosy in this neighborhood. No, our neighborhood was pretty safe overall. Would you consider your neighborhood to be a nice, wealthy area of Houston? Um, I'd say so. Definitely a nice area. Um, Probably upper middle class, not necessarily like that wealthy or filthy rich or anything like that, but definitely, definitely upper middle class. Looking back, do you feel at all privileged that you've grown up where you did? Yes, I always give thanks because I know I'm very privileged and it's a blessing to be here. Would you ever consider donating, helping out a less fortunate and wealthy part of Houston? Oh, definitely. Not all the time to Houston. I know during Harvey we gave back. Me and my friends gave back. I always build bikes around Christmas time. It should be coming up. We build bikes for the kids that are less fortunate to have for Christmas. And yeah, I would definitely consider donating. I already do that. What takeaways, if any, do you have from this interview? Did it open your eyes to anything you have not considered before? Takeaways, just basically that I'm very blessed, to be in this position, to have parents that work hard and love me every single day. And I'm very thankful for that. And I should definitely give back to the community in any way possible.
Experiences growing up in the Sunnyside area of Houston. Uh, this is like any other. Feel unsafe to walk, ride a bike without parental supervision in your neighborhood? Yes, when I was little. Bullying or illegal activities ever a major concern for you or your parents in the school? Um, Not really. Would you say that your schools had enough / a decent amount of funding for education, extracurricular activities, field trips? Uh, yeah, I think we did. Experience any type of crime in your neighborhood? Break-ins, robberies, shootings? Uh, there was a break-in next to my house, but thankfully it never happened to us. Would you consider your neighborhood to be an unwealthy / less fortunate area of Houston? Yeah. Looking back, do you feel at all privileged to have grown up where you did? If not, did you feel less privileged than people growing up in different neighborhoods? I don't know. Would you ever consider donating or helping out Sunnyside after you move out? If I did move out, I feel like I would, but I don't know how much though. What takeaways, if any, do you have from this interview? Did your eyes open to anything you had not considered before? No.
So there you have it. Those are the interviews. That's me comparing two people growing up, one in a pretty wealthy neighborhood and the other one in non-wealthy. And I think this was pretty eye-opening to me. I hope it's pretty eye-opening to the rest of you guys that, some people just grow up a little bit more privileged than others, and it's just really important to give back and to be sympathetic to everybody, and just to know that some people don't have it as good as other people. Overall, I think this is pretty successful, and yeah, I think it definitely answered the question.